Some of the trends I'm looking at for 2014 include this idea of the brand as therapy. We've come a long way from the positioning based on price. We also saw a lot of positioning based on product features, but now the future's looking at lifestyle brands, which are these brands that make you feel identified. They help your self-expression, and we're taking it a step forward in 2014, and I'm thinking we're gonna start seeing a lot of self-development brands. So brands that help you become your better self. Something else that has already been trending late in 2013, but should get more intense in 2014, is the way brands intervene in their customers' conversations. So we have social networks, and they are the platforms for conversations between human beings with their friends, their family, and their colleagues. But there's also brands in this huge ocean of interactions. So we have human conversations and we have brand communications. So how do brands come into the scene without interrupting? Because we all know what it feels like when someone interrupts a conversation and breaks the flow. We're all kind of lost, and we're kind of irritated too, because this person has been so disrespectful. And that's something you definitely don't want your brand to be associated with. So the idea is to make this sort of graceful intervention. And the way that this is usually done is, as these social networks improve their targeting capabilities, we are able to discover who really is needing our help at the moment. Brand experience should get more holistic. Every interaction we have with a product or service is holistic by nature. That means that when your airline has really good online service, but you get to the airport and you have some sort of, issue with the person helping you, you're not going to think that the brand that served you online is any different from the brand that served you offline. So this idea of the whole experience as a seamless sort of ecosystem needs to be enforced, and I believe it will be enforced in 2014. A really interesting phenomenon I'm starting to look at is this ironic move of big brands that are trying to play small. So you are Walmart, and this is something I recently saw in Napa Valley actually. You are Walmart and you sell a lot of inventory and you have huge suppliers, the kind of suppliers that allow you to charge lower prices every day, right? So why would you give out these newspapers in the middle of a public market saying and inviting people to buy local? And why would you show them these local vendors that they can buy from? Why would you do that if you're Walmart? And that sort of got me thinking about the way big brands with a global footprint are starting to sort of narrow down their scope and try to seem more close to their customers. They're trying to break that barrier. Sort of this idea that broadcasting, yelling out loud, is not as effective as like slowly whispering next to you. So this apparent contradiction is something I also saw in Colombia. As Starbucks, for example. So Starbucks tries to move into Colombia, and we all know how much of a global footprint this company has. And instead of just broadcasting this ostentatious, we believe in fair trade, they decide to walk the talk and actually just source Colombian coffee in Colombia. So this resonates much better with the consumer. The fact that we're saying, we're not just promoting fair trade, we're buying from your neighbor. We're buying from you. And this is the evidence, and come and experience it for yourself. For 2014, I expect disciplines that have traditionally relied on, statistically heavy research practices to start implementing qualitative research techniques. So borrowing a little bit from designers. So designers have been using contextual research techniques for a long time, and somehow marketers relied on lengthy focus groups and questionnaires for which we had to wait months to get any reasonable results, and we had to analyze them, and we were sort of paralyzed by this amount of information and all this processing. And what ended up happening was the feedback, the insights from this research came in too late. So the idea of borrowing these tools from the designer's toolkit is actually what a lot of people are calling design thinking. So this a practice implemented by IDEO and other large companies in the field is definitely raising attention on the fact that we need to become more agile in the way we conduct our research. Unless, of course, there is some sort of advantage to conducting long-term research that we would not get from just conducting, a brief interview session or ethnography, which has also become very popular. So for 2014, I definitely believe nostalgic branding will make a big comeback. It's actually the topic of my PhD research, nostalgic branding. And the idea is that Generation Y has become this huge purchasing force. They are the largest, if you wanted to look at them as a segment, they are quite possibly the most attractive market segment at the moment. They are the largest. We're talking billions of people. And if brands start taking advantage of this opportunity, which is what I think will happen in 2014, we're going to start seeing a lot more of these new brands that we think are new just because they are, 10, 15 years old. They're going to start to play up on their history, which might not seem nostalgic for people in Generation X, but for our new millennials, these people that are entering the workforce, that are getting married, having children, forming their families, this is nostalgic for them. 10 years ago, it's nostalgic for them. So we're familiar with the explosion, sort of the growth of Pinterest and Instagram and Vine and all of these video image social networks. What I believe will happen in 2014 is brands will start, those brands that haven't yet started, will start seeing in these platforms a strategic space for them to occupy. And the importance of this is we've always relied on text and on copy as this miraculous recipe that will sort of engage the consumer. We're expecting to create magic headlines. We've always believed in this sort of magic headlines that get you the sale. But with these image-based platforms, we start seeing that image might actually be the copy. So image as this powerful brand communication tool is definitely another one of the trends that I identified for 2014. Brands are going to have to start becoming sort of stylists. So they're going to have to start styling how they project their image. So if you're trying to sell a product and you're using Pinterest or you're using Instagram to do it, you can't just put up any picture. Brands are going to start thinking about the positioning of the elements within the picture. They're going to start thinking about the filters they use. They're going to start thinking about the context. And all of these variables impact the viewer and the consumer in powerful ways. So with all the clutter in the marketplace at the moment, it feels like it's very hard to differentiate. So another one of the trends that I see that will definitely be important in 2014 is a brand personality twist. So think of traditional categories like airlines or insurance, even car producers, car manufacturers. These industries, we expect certain brand personalities from these industries. So we expect, for example, airlines to be serious and formal and sort of very contained in their approach. However, we start seeing airlines like Virgin America where you get a safety video where everyone's dancing and it's like a rap video. You think you're watching MTV or something, and it's your safety video. So that kind of brand communication piece it breaks a clutter. It just organically becomes viral. people are sharing it. People are asking, the flight crew if they can watch it again. When had you wanted to watch a safety video twice in an airplane? So definitely brands that jump on that surprise effect. They just decide that their category's personality is not fitting for them, and they decide to reframe. So that reframe, that twist, is what definitely will help them break through the clutter. And this has happened with other industries. I worked for a couple of years in Groupon in Latin America, and their thing was, why should a coupon company be so serious? So if you read at Groupon reviews or their copy when they try to advertise a deal, it always starts with this crazy, wacky idea that makes absolutely no sense. And this is their editorial style. It's to be ironic, it's to be sarcastic, to be witty. So these were not traditional personality attributes that you would definitely associate with a brand in that category. We're also seeing, car rental companies like Uber try out these new personality styles that definitely make people wonder if every brand has to be boring, or every brand within a boring category has to be boring. And the answer is not necessarily. The answer is, if you are a fun brand, if you're a relatable brand, a human brand, which is what we're all trying to connect to, then you might be more successful in getting people's attention. As consumers get more access to easier tools to manipulate the images they're taking with their smartphones, the videos they're recording, as these tools become more accessible and cheaper and just easier to use, these consumers are going to become a lot savvier in the way they interact with these media files. So another one of the trends that I expect to become very important in 2014 is the whole crowdsourcing idea, but taken to the next level. What I'm thinking, and I'm starting to see this actually, is that since consumers can now modify the information they're recording from their environment, because they can now create at new levels, because some of the consumers now look like producers. They could pass for professional video producers and photographers. And since this is happening, I believe brands will be able to crowdsource in a way that lets them not only crowdsource ideas for their campaigns, which is what they've traditionally done in the past couple of years, but they will now be able to crowdsource actual final products. So I believe that brands will be able to crowdsource, full videos and full commercials and just an entire image that they can buy rights from their customers. And then they can use these sort of straight out of the box. So we're starting to rely on the production power of people. I've been surprised myself every time I see a new startup coming up from Asia or coming up from Latin America that seems so Silicon Valley born and raised. It's just insane. These startups are trying to blend in the Silicon Valley ecosystem. So they're starting to hire some of their development in their original countries, so Latin American countries or Asian countries, and then they're hiring their communications talent abroad. And what ends up happening is you have this startup with this huge competitive advantage in terms of price, because they can produce at a lower cost, but you get these, extremely native feeling communications. So I think that phenomenon, like that whole outsourcing of their core competencies in different areas according to where they are done best, is definitely a surprise for next year. I expect to see more Latin American companies and more Asian companies, stepping up, and for American consumers not even to realize that these companies are not from Silicon Valley. So that sort of camouflage effect, I think, is definitely a surprise. I expect more Latin American companies to jump up to the scene.